these things are on again? I don't know.
Okay, bye.
Call the regular meeting of Cobre Board of Education into session. I'd like to call the regular meeting of Cobre Board of Education into session. It is 5:02. Please let the minutes show that all board members are here. And please stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico. This is a symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Item number 2 is action item. Entertain a motion for approval of agenda items. Motion by Mr. Gomez, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Cordova. Any questions on the agenda? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Entertain a motion for approval of the minutes of September 27th.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Cordova, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Holguin. Any questions on the minutes? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Entertain a motion for approval of scope of work.
Well, we need Ms. Riley to go ahead and come up and present that again.
Okay.
So Ms. Riley, if you could please come up and present that again. We did make some changes based on recommendations from the last meeting.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. You were provided the scope of work with the needed changes. So we could get the approval so we can move on with looking for the search for the superintendent.
You have a recommendation, Judge? Were there any questions on it?
Yes, I have some questions. Is it on?
Tap it.
It-
Tap it.
The changes that were recommended included setting a schedule for Citizen Advisory Committee to meet. And that didn't make it to that part. It was under advertising. And there was also a request to conduct the references checks down after, oh no, that one was moved. The selection, which is, I think, this is the most important one, is under selection, we had recommend with the citizen committee and the board participation, at least 3 candidates for the final selection to the board. And that's not on here. And I'm curious as to how it is that we can make these comments in the previous meeting, and then something other than that can come back to us. Because this is a board action. It's not a superintendent action, it is a board action.
Mr. President, when doing the scope of work, we do have certain criteria that we would like to have be presented by whoever the company is going to apply for the position. But if we make it too tedious, if we make it too detailed, for example, this is just an example. If we're putting out a scope of work for a secretary and we're putting answer the phone, take the message, deliver the message, make sure that people read the message, it's just too much. So once we have the basics in the scope of work, then I believe that once we do have that search committee or that search company, then we can ask them, this is what we would like. But in the scope of work, we just have to give them a broad, because they know how to do their job. We don't want to have to show them how to do it, because obviously they've been doing it for a while. And also, the school board was provided the scope of work back on October the 6th. So this allowed for about 2 weeks for you to review it. This gave ample amount of time to make corrections, to let me know, because I think we've postponed it quite enough. And it's holding us back in having to make all these little corrections.
These corrections that I'm pointing out are ones that were stated at the last meeting, and it was agreed that that it would be redone to reflect those changes, and you still haven't answered the question. I understand you can put in your assumption, but this is the board document. This is the one that the board will designate and put together. And for it to have been changed from what we were talked about at the last meeting to what you're saying now, it was done without open session commentary. And I find that to be highly irregular, especially when you take a look at what you just said. Under the selection, it has select the candidate. Who is selecting the candidate?
Well, if you look where it says description, it says this is done with the people, whoever we hire, and the board members. So this is why this was sent out to the board members back through an email, so that we could make these corrections, so that you can email me back. We could have this so that we could move forward. So I did add what we had been voting on, but there are certain things that if we just add it, we're gonna maybe, I don't know, I don't want to use the word scare, but we are gonna maybe discourage companies from coming to apply for this position.
Doesn't the board, and isn't this entire exercise the board establishing the criteria? No one else, but the board establishing the criteria. And when we talk about public participation, I know that that's kind of a taboo for some people on the board, but this one completely rules out the participation of that committee that we would have put together to help come up with that recommendation. And if a company isn't willing to do this in this manner, then we'll all be voting on a selection that excludes public participation, excludes public participation at a relevant level, including making recommendations. And the fact that this one goes immediately to select a candidate rather than to refer the candidates, the selection of the candidate should be done only by the board. The recommendations should come by the company and the advisory board, in my opinion. And the selection should only be by the board. And that's not spelled out here. Selection of candidate, you're implying that because the superintendent provides superintendent services, including, whoa. The initial one of this had the board being involved throughout the steps, and now that's gone too.
I didn't bring my history of all my papers. Did you bring it?
Yeah, I have all my.
Okay, the previous one said, provide superintendent consulting services in with continuation of updates to board members, including the following. That part's gone now.
I'm sorry, which one is gone?
It's under description.
Okay, no, okay, I'm sorry, I was reading one of the previous ones. Sorry about that. That's my apologies. It is there, and I apologize for that.
And to me, this thing is just to select the company. Once we select the company, then this selection criteria, we can go to them and tell them, we as a board, is what I'm saying, go to them and tell them, this is what we want on it. This is just to select the company to help us select the superintendent.
When the companies are bidding, it's important for them to know the critical steps and the participation of certain parties, so that way they can base their estimate or their proposal on things that we expect them to do. And I think putting that information there will give them better idea of how to cost this out. Certainly, public involvement is gonna be an added cost. And that should be something that our selection criteria should include, because if we give this to somebody that's not really that engaging the public, then they're not serving our purpose.
But that's one thing that we can tell them, that we need to engage public when we select them or interview those companies. I'm not saying select the company, I'm saying interview those companies so that we can make a decision as to which one we're going to want. Because I'm sure there'll be, if there's people applying, they'll be applying, and then we meet with them and go over some of this stuff and tell them what we want. Then we haven't selected them yet. They can say, well, no, we can't do that, so then they're out.
If we have a scope of work and we're gonna add to it during the interview, that makes it that their prices are no longer reflecting what it is, the work that we're asking them to do. The better descript we can give a scope of work will give us better prices, and will prepare them for that question, and they can bring information that regards as to how they perform in that particular, especially if it performs in terms of involving the public. That is critical. That is critical to me, and I would like to, I don't understand why we would skimp on the scope of work, even though it was recommended the last meeting, and all of a sudden not put there.
So isn't what you're asking the sentence under screening?
No, under selection, it says select the candidate. And what I had recommended the last board meeting was that we put recommend with the citizen committee and the board participation, at least 3 candidates for the selection to be made by the board.
But then there is also schedule of interviews, all of that stuff
Sure.
is in there.
Yes, and this I think is much more important than all the other stuff, but it's important to have all the things, schedule of interview and schedule of this. That is a major step.
So once again, Mr. President, like I had mentioned earlier, this email was mailed out or emailed to all the board members for their preview and for their approval and the input. I'm just wondering as to why we're waiting until the last minute to bring up all these needed changes. You've had over almost about 2 weeks.
Let's correct this. The last school board meeting, these recommendations were made. They were kept off of this for reasons that I do not know. So you presenting a document that wasn't as we had requested it to be, and I'm just making sure that the critical elements are still going to be in there. And to me, it's much more critical than just going by and saying, oh, we wasted enough time. I brought it up the last meeting. It was the closure of that meeting. It was that these things would be included and they would be brought back to the board. That did not happen.
So in order for me to go on from here, I would like to know how I can make it better or change it, because like I said, you've almost had about 2 weeks to review. The whole board has had this with the changes. So at that time, I would have thought that you would have emailed me and said, hey, can you please add this? Can you take this off? With these added changes, I believe that this is ready to be posted. However, if the board believes we should once again go back to make further changes, we can do that, and then we can present them at a later board meeting if that's what you would like.
The other problem, the problematic thing with what you just said is that there could be discussions that are not in the public session that would influence this document. And that's one of the reasons I didn't engage in that. the discussions regarding the selection and the criteria that is going to go forward should be made with the board present. And to do that would be to one person to contact an employee of the district and tell them what it is it should look like, and then that's exceeding our authority.
So, Mr. President, I would ask then, if all board members want to add that statement, that we would need the words again, so we could go ahead and add it, so we can move on. So I didn't catch the word, so I don't know if all the board members want to add that, or if that's what one board member wants to add, I don't know.
Any board members comment?
I think it's important to get public input throughout this process, so I would support adding that.
And it does say on the first one, form a citizen advisory committee to establish roles, functions, performance objectives, and provide input. So it is covered up there.
I just think it's very repetitive to be adding it to every bulleted, because it does have it in the first sentence, so I would assume that it's a given.
And when you write,
And especially in the planning, because it is the first step in the planning, so obviously that's going to be established.
when you write criteria for contracts and for bidding, assuming is something you should certainly try to avoid, especially when it is a significant deviation from what you have written down, which is select the candidate. And it sounds like it's a final thing. It's not even making the part of having recommendations made to the board should be very critically written into this process. To just put the selection there pretty much defines that.
So under setting the criteria, if it says provide input, do we just expand on that and say provide input to the board throughout the process, or to the committee throughout the process, or add something somewhere else? So my question was, under where it says setting the criteria, it does say to form the advisory committee and provide input. Do we need to expand on that sentence, or does the board want to add further clarification somewhere else?
I think if you add it through, provide input in the advertising, screening, interviewing, and selection phases of the process, I think that would probably cover all of it, in my opinion.
Because that's all the different areas.
Yeah.
Mr. Cordova?
Mr. President, the way I see this, we are asking for people to bid, a company to come in and bid to select a superintendent. When they come to us, they come with their criteria, with the way their process, the way they do it. When we talk to them, we say, we want this added, we want this changed, and before we make a final selection, the board does that. And at that time, we could say you will not work for us, or yes, that's the way we want it. At this time, I think you've got one board member stating what he wishes, and I think at this time, it's time to put it up for a vote and see what the rest of the board wants to do. Thank you.
Okay, you're asking for the question?
Beg pardon?
You're asking for the question. Do we have a motion for this?
No, we didn't. We didn't make a recommendation, or we have not made a motion. Thank you. So I recommend that we approve the scope of work as presented by Ms. Riley.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
Gomez, so moved.
Motion by Mr. Gomez. Second?
Cordova, second.
Second by Mr. Cordova. Any other comments?
yes, I would like to add an amendment to the motion, that it be descript on the process for selecting, not to simply state as one bullet, but to state as recommend with the citizen committee participation and board participation, at least 3 candidates for the selection of a superintendent to the board. And then at the very end of that, say, the board will make the final decision based on recommendation, make the final decision.
I think we have a motion on the floor in a second, and we should vote on it before any suggestions are made on what to
It
do
is
after that.
appropriate to add amendment, to put in amendments before the vote, and so you can vote on the amendment at this time.
The person that made the motion will have to approve the amendment. Do you want to amend your motion? No. Okay. Motion stands. Any other comment? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye.
The vote is 3-2. It's approved as is, with being that provide input is up there in the planning and search and setting up the criteria. Okay. Motion carries.
Yes, stays as is.
Hmm?
Stays as is.
Okay. Item D.
Item D is the legal notice. Now that the scope of work has been approved, Ms. Riley will present on the legal notice that we will be putting out, or for the board to vote on whether or not this is a legal notice that we want to use to put in the newspaper to advertise to find a search consulting service. So, Ms. Riley, if you would present it first.
This is a legal notice that will be going out in the Silver City newspaper. Obviously, I will be making some changes to the date. We can discuss a date as we had talked about earlier. Proposal must be submitted electronically by email no later than, and I've left that blank. It gives them a specific time of when we will be accepting it, all the way up to proposal received after the due date will not be accepted. So I would like for you to review that and see if we can submit that. And it will also post on the Cobre Consolidated school website.
But in order to finalize it, we do need the month and the date to add on to that.
Okay, and the month and the date is something that we need to settle. Okay.
So it's something that the board would-
Normally on this type of thing, for a search company, being that it be at least 30 days for them to reply. And then from there, then we need to decide on the length of time that gives the company time for them to do the search. And that's something that we'll have to talk to them whenever we get them as to what the length of time that they take.
But, Mr. President, this is just to post for the search committee. So when we come up with the date, so I'm going to recommend that we pass the legal notice as presented, but that tonight we come up with a date that'll be listed on the legal notice. So this is just the legal notice for the consulting companies that are going to be applying.
To apply
do
to
the
us,
position
yes.
job. Yeah.
Mhm. Yes. Okay, and you recommend it. You heard the recommendation, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Cordova, second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gomez. Any other comments on the legal notice?
So if we could get a date as part of our discussion before we vote on the final.
I would say, Joyce, that, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I would say that from the time this legal notice goes out, we give them about 30 days to respond to us.
We can put it out tomorrow.
If we put it out tomorrow, that gives us a date of November 19th.
Okay?
Considering the Thanksgiving, can we make it November 27th?
It's fine with me too.
So probably November 29th, because November 27th is on a Saturday.
Okay, sorry.
So November 29th.
Why don't we make it just till the end of November, and that brings us even with the months and starting December 1st?
1. So put it till November 30?
Is that okay? Okay, November 30th would be the date on that,
Okay, November 30th.
okay? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Riley. Okay, Mr. President, next is Finance with Ms. Terry Hogan.
Yeah. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. We have the first item under finance, and these went to the Finance Committee on October, what was it? 11th. So this one is the CRRSA Air Quality Award. The bar has one line. It's for supply assets, which is for the filtration on the ductwork. We're still working on trying to make sure that we do something permanent rather than have the portable units for air purification. So the line item is the supply assets, and that's what that covers. It's $17,820. And the table behind it tells you the award, the amount of the award. So.
Mr. President and members of the board, we had added money into the CARES 3 application for the ductwork, but because we did receive this additional amount, we should expend this. It's going to be about $100,000 total for the ductwork anyway, so we should go ahead and expend this before we tap into the rest on the CARES 3. And then just a little information. We did receive a email today. They're putting out another Air Quality 3 award in the amount of, I believe it was $15,000. So I did go ahead and apply for that today as well. So, but that's not approved yet. We just submitted that application today.
Okay. You recommend it?
So I do recommend approval of the Air Quality Award as presented by Ms. Hoagie.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion? Motion by Mr. Holguin, second? Second by Mr. Guadiana. Any other questions on it? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, next item is review of September 2021 bills.
So the listings are separate. It's got the September ones because those were already paid before we decided to change the process. So those had already gone through the payment process. And then I know I'm getting a little bit ahead, but the approval of the October checks that were reviewed by the Finance Committee on October 11th, that's the list that has the October dates. And so the September bills were already processed and paid before that. So if you have any questions on the September bills, or if you can approve the September bills as we did it previously.
So I do recommend approval of the September bills as presented by Ms. Holguin.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion? Motion by Mr. Cordova, second? Second by Mr. Gomez. Any questions? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, next item on the agenda is approval of October checks that were reviewed by the Finance Committee. So Ms. Holguin.
So when we met in the finance, we reviewed the list of checks. We went through individually, and the Finance Committee decided that some of the recurring bills which are on this list going forward will identify as recurring utilities or in that nature, so that you know which ones are for services, which ones are for utilities, and which ones are for goods and materials. But on this one, because this is the first time that we had gone to finance to review the actual checks, this one was already produced. So this has bills from October, it would have been October 1 through October 5, so that's why those checks are dated October 5.
I recommend approval of the October bill payments as presented by Ms. Holguin.
You heard the recommendation, do I hear a motion? So moved. Motion by Mr. Gomez,
Second.
second by Mr. Holguin. Any questions? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holguin. Okay, last item under action items is the use of facilities by the class of 2023. This is one that we had brought to the board a while back, and we had to table because they were missing some signatures from our food services manager. So we did receive the signatures, and they did reschedule, so we're looking at this for October 23rd. I do have all the required signatures. It has been approved by food services, so I do recommend approval.
You heard the recommendation, do I hear a motion? Motion by Mr. Holguin, second? Second by Mr. Guadiana. Any question? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moves us to one update on unfinished business.
At a previous meeting, we had talked about the possibility of a board retreat. I did at that time say we were looking for somebody to help facilitate it. I had spoken to Paul Aguilar. I did follow up with him. And he does have a person that he's recommending. I have not contacted her yet because we didn't have any dates or anything like that. So we do have a person that we can reach out to see if she is available and would be able to do a board retreat and facilitate it for us. Paul says that if she's not, that he could make himself available, but he feels like she's better qualified to do that than he would be. And the person is Bobby Gutierrez. He said she's a former superintendent in Santa Fe in Española, and she's currently the executive director of the RECs.
What's the name again?
Bobby Gutierrez.
Okay. Are you gonna try to get a hold of him, Joyce?
I can. I just wanted to know if, are we still looking at going forward with this? Do we have a general idea of a timeline? So when I reach out to her, we can at least give her a couple of dates or a couple of weeks that we're looking at, and maybe possible, AM, morning, afternoon, evening, what are we looking at before I reach out to her?
Normally what we've done with retreats in the past, Joy, is maybe one afternoon start and then end the next day at, I don't know, sometimes we go the whole day or half day the next day or something like that is what we do. See if that can be done, or any other comments from the rest of the board?
I have a comment. Mr. President, the biggest question, are we looking at this, doing it before December? And
That's up to the board.
I know we talked about this on the last board meeting, and I didn't say much, but just thinking about it and stuff, I got 3 meetings left. Why it's not gonna benefit me and the district that I'm gonna have this training, and we have an election coming up that I would think it'd be more feasible to do it once, if the 2 board members or whoever is voted on the elections on November 2nd, that would be some awesome training that they would get to start and move this district forward.
And I'm open to whatever the board wants to do.
I have a question. So what does our agenda look like for the retreat? I think that would be important to establish before we start talking to a facilitator to, give them an idea of what we're trying to accomplish, what our goal is for the meeting.
Correct.
So I think that would be important first to establish an agenda.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
I kind of agree with what Mr. Gomez said on the last board meeting. That's what we discussed. Excuse me. What we have at hand is the election coming up, and we have a possibility of, well, we have three of our members, except for Frank, rerunning, and if we get three new board members, one of the things that you had stated before, it's very important that all board members are there at the retreat for the length of the whole thing. If we've got some board members that don't get elected and they've been there for 4 years, I mean, what's going to be the purpose of them coming to a retreat? I mean, like Mr. Gomez said, maybe that should be for the new board. So I think that I agree also with the agenda, that we come up with the agenda and stuff, and we see what happens with the SB 9. We see what happens with who gets elected, and then we work on that for sometime after the new board comes in, and we get settled down, and they get a little bit of training under their belt. That's my suggestion, but whatever the board decides.
I have a comment as well. Along with what Frank just stated, one of the things we discussed at the board retreat should cover is performance evaluation. If there is the election where new board members come, that would make that kind of a process which they really don't benefit from participating in because they don't know the previous history. So waiting till after the election can better set the criteria for the agenda, as well as another comment related to the training session that was held the last time via Zoom with the State School Board Association. There was a gentleman that presented something very, very well, and I'll get you his name, but he seemed like to be a perfect fit for doing an assessment of school performance as well as criteria for board operations. And I would hope that person be one person. I don't know of anybody I know Gabe and I kind of chatted back and forth on it, that you'd make an excellent person to facilitate this. I think you were part of that chat.
I wasn't part of it. I'd have to go back to look at it. I don't remember the person's name. I'm not.
I wrote it down, so I'll get
Okay.
it and I'll bring it back. I'll text you to it.
Okay.
I'll text it to you.
So we have a possibility of 2 people that we can look at to help facilitate. Do we want to then wait until after January?
I would say that yes, and that way, I know we're going to have one new board member for sure. I don't know how the election will go for the other 2, but maybe right after the election, we can sit down and work on the retreat.
Okay. Yeah, I would just, need, again, before we reach out to them, it would be helpful to have a timeline and then some objectives or some goals of what we would be working on. Okay. So we'll table this till November, December? Till December? Till December, okay. Okay.
Okay? That then brings us to public input on any item of the agenda. Do we have anything, Victor? Okay. Then brings us to administration? Nothing? Okay. Superintendent report.
Okay, under superintendent report, just an informational item. We did apply for the Foy daycare for a child care stabilization grant. We will be bringing that forward at a later time, but just wanted you to know that we did receive that grant in the amount of $102,250. $102,250. And what we're looking at that is for building improvements. Mr. Peru, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit?
I'll just start all over again. One of the things is that with the Foy daycare, we have not really done any improvements to it since it was built back in the 90s. And one of the things is the roof has served its lifetime already. We need a new roof on that. And we also would like to be able to go with, after we do the roof, we reached out to Tremco. It's a corporation that comes in and does a lot of the refabrication of parts of the, they're going to be coming in and scanning the roof, making sure that we don't have any other damage in certain areas. We have had some leaks in there, we've patched it. And so it was nice when we put in for this grant, and when Farella said that we had gotten it, it was actually a blessing because of the things that we have to do to that building also. One of the things is on the safety issues also, we have a swamp cooler there, and we also will be able to do a refrigeration system, you know, where it'll work much better. We'll be able to put in the air purification into that system also, so it'll work much better. So it'll have the heating and the cooling right now. We've been putting Band-Aids on the swamp cooler and the heater there. They've also have outlived their life. And so with this grant, we'll be able to do the roof, the refrigeration system, and also carpet if everything goes well. Will be, the way the prices are coming in, we will be able to cover it all with the $102,000. And so, I mean, I think it's a great thing once, you know, we do get the money. I'm going to just go ahead and go on what I was going to talk about. Yes, sir. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Mr. Peru, in the past, we have been talking about remodeling of the Cobre High School, and we were told that any improvements that we made to it would kind of further push us
Yes, sir.
into another year, or
Yes, sir.
or out of the money or whatever. So will this do the same thing?
It
Or-
will.
or
It'll
where are we
affect
at?
us.
Where
It'll
are we at with the remodeling of the school?
On the remodeling of school right now, we are sitting in the 70s, so we are in the area we need to be to go to it. The only thing that's going to hold us back is we're going to have to go to bond on that. And right now, we don't have the bonding capacity to be able to do the whole school. So we have to wait and be able to pay off the bonds that we have right now before we can go to bond on the high school. The high school is, what is actually holding up really good is one of the improvements that we did do to it some years back was we put a brand new roof on it. When we put the brand new roof on it, it took us from, we were in the 60s at that time, it took us down to like 120. So we have now climbed back into the rankings because of the structural part of the schools. One of the things that will benefit us, it'll benefit us, but it won't benefit us, is when we do go to remodel and we do go to bond on the school, is we are going to have a much smaller school. You know, the whole thing that we will lose out is classrooms, because we don't have, the school was built for like 1,000 students to 1,200 students. Right now we have 320 or 340 students. I'm not sure which one it is, 320 or 340. But so when we rebuild the school, we will rebuild it for that size of student staff and the staff. So we will lose a lot of classrooms when we do that. The one thing that I recommended back then, and I will recommend again, is to make sure that we do not touch the gyms or any of that area that's actually this side of the school, because if we do take out the gymnasium, we will get a gym probably a little bit bigger than Cliff's, and that will not serve our purpose for anything, because we use the gymnasium for so many different things, you know, also for the community. So that's one of the things I will recommend when we do go to the architects and stuff like that, that we leave those alone. You know, we've seen now that it affected us really bad when we did Central, because at Bayard we did not include the gym on the architects. And so we were able to keep the gym at Bayard, so that, you know, we have a cafeteria and we have a gymnasium. At Central, the superintendent we had at the time wanted to totally do away with it, and so we did do away with the Central gymnasium. So they wanted to do a multi-purpose room, and it has not helped those students out at Central at all. You know, it's really defeated the purpose of having that multi-purpose room, because, you know, they constantly tear it up because we're moving tables in and out so that they can use it for PE. So that's one of the recommendations that we will strongly present, is that we will not do the gymnasium or even the small gym, so we can keep it, even if we can do that later. One of the things that benefited us at Bayard is that we didn't do any construction to Bayard, and it just so happened right as we were finishing the construction on Bayard Elementary, a grant came out, and we were able to receive $700,000 to redo the gymnasium at Bayard, so it worked out really well. So hopefully we will be able to fall into some of that capital improvements at that time. You know, so, but like I said, one of the things that we'll have to do is we'll have to get the bonds paid off and get them taken care of before we go on the construction in the school. But right now, we're sitting in a really good position to do that. Doing the Foy daycare will probably knock us down a little bit, but by the time we get to that point, it will be back in the area, you know.
But I thought that in order to get that, if we were to rebuild, that would give us a smaller school. But now if we remodel, we'd stay where we are, we just remodel what we got.
The only thing that affects us with PSFA is because PSFA puts out 60% of the cost. It's like 60, it's actually 6139, I think, is what we're going to hopefully look at, or it's the opposite, right, Terry? So, but anyways, we take 40% of the cost. And the thing being is, if we remodel, they will only let us remodel a portion of it. We won't be able to remodel the whole school because it's going by the size of the that we need, student base. And that's through PSFA. Since I'm up here, if it's okay, if I jump down to the update on the scoreboard. Once we found out that the scoreboard was malfunctioning, I was able to make contact with Spectrum, the company that put the scoreboard up. I was able to visit with the representative out of Houston. What he did is, as soon as I told him what it was doing, and he explained that to me, he sent us actually a whole control board, which is the brain of the scoreboard, and he emailed it out. Luckily, we had been making contact with Hellas because we were going to be meeting with them on another meeting the following week. So it worked out really well. We were able to get the brain in on October 5th. And I asked if he could send one of the representatives from Hellas out of El Paso to come in and put it in for us so that we wouldn't have to try and contract that out or wait for one of the representatives to come out because they said they wouldn't be able to do it. So Hellas sent a representative on October 6th, and we put it in, and it's been working properly now for all the games. We were able to try it the following day. We left it on that day. We were running it through the sequences, and it ran really well. And then we had a JV game the following day, and it worked really well. So it was actually the control panel. We don't know if it was lightning or what it is, but something affected some of the sensors in there. And so they said instead of trying to figure out which sensor it was, they just sent us a whole brand new board. And they also sent us a return label so we can send the old one back so they can rebuild it in case somebody else needs it. You know, and then I'd like to give you guys an update, you know, because I'm sure you guys are going to hear we're having some issues right now with our freezers. You know, our freezers at the high school and the middle school, we're struggling with them. The middle school is not as old as the freezers we have at the high school. The high school, the freezers that we're struggling with are all the freezers that were at Snell Middle School. What we did is we wanted to be able to save money when we rebuilt Snell. We brought all those freezers up here, and it's the ones that are in the back of the cafeteria. We are struggling right now with one of the sleeves broke, and it leaked all the oil out of it. So we're in the process right now trying to locate one of the sleeves that goes on that compressor. And as soon as we are able to locate it, it'll probably take us a couple weeks to get it. In the meantime, I've made arrangements already with Fort Bayard. Fort Bayard and us have always worked really close together. I mean, we've stored food for them in our freezers. So we will be taking some of our food products, especially like we have all the Thanksgiving meals and everything's going to be coming in pretty soon this week. We'll be transporting it up to Fort Bayard, and they will be storing it for us until we use it. And then also the food basket here in Bayard, I made contact with them, and they are going to let us store some of our stuff there since we have both of those freezers that are down. You know, the one at Snell, we had determined that it was a compressor that had gone bad at the Snell freezer. We ordered it. It took 3 weeks to get here. We installed it last week, and once we put it in, it was defective. You know, we couldn't get it to run. We diagnosed it, and then finally our HVAC person and one of our electricians that we brought on, they found a pinhole on the bottom of that compressor, and that's where it was losing the pressure and it wasn't holding. So we contacted the company. There's been a big discussion between the company and I because they did not want to exchange it for us because it was defective. because we had installed it and we had done some modifications to get it in there, you know. But when you get compressors like that, you have to do modifications to get it into the areas, and you need to. And so we finally came to an agreement, you know, because one of the things, I mean, the compressor cost us $1,100, you know. And when I spoke to the manager of that company, I just told them that they were going to lose our business if we weren't able to get that exchanged. So this morning he called me back and said that he was willing to make the exchange. We have to deliver it to them back in Cruces tomorrow, and they'll get the other one coming to us. But the only bad thing is that other one is going to take a couple of weeks to get here. You know, like the last one took 3 weeks. They told us this one will take a couple of weeks. So as soon as we get that compressor in, we will reinstall it, and hopefully we'll be running again. But until then, you know, we'll be, you know, utilizing Fort Bayard, like I said, and the food basket. You know, because I had gone out to see if there was anywhere we could rent some of these freezers to help us with storing this food so we don't lose food. And especially now that with Thanksgiving coming and being able to, you know, store all that food that we're going to have to store for what's coming up on Thanksgiving, they were gracious enough to, you know, when I call food baskets, they were open to it. They said, thank you, you know, and I said, we really appreciate it. I said, we'll rent them from you if we have to. And they said, no, we're more than happy to help you guys out. So they will be able to store that. And like I said, in Fort Bayard, in their freezer that they have, their main freezer, we will be able to store 4 to 5 pallets of our food in there, and we can stock it up to 15 feet high. So we will start transporting probably everything here tomorrow or the day after to get everything moved into those areas so that we can get the stuff as it comes in, the commodities come in for the Thanksgiving. But I know that you're probably going to be called from the community because you know, the freezer is going down, so I wanted to give you guys an update on that. Any questions?
What kind of spoilage was there that resulted from that?
From what I understand, it was what we lost more was fruit, because that was in that one freezer was fruit and some salad stuff is what they were telling me. You know, luckily we hadn't received anything for the Thanksgiving stuff yet, and because that's a big item when it starts coming in. I mean, because you figure it's for every student, and then some have 1 or 2 parents that come in and eat at every elementary, so that's going to be pretty full. Is that going to be the same way?
For Thanksgiving, based on the numbers rising for COVID, we are not going to have community people, parents coming in eating Thanksgiving dinner. It will only be for students and staff this year. Because all principals do want to continue to limit the number of community people in their buildings.
Okay. One of the things with Thanksgiving, everybody partakes. I mean, you know, when it's regular lunches and stuff, we don't have all the students eat everything. But when Thanksgiving comes around, all of them do like it, and they eat it. So we don't have a lot of waste when that's made. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Peru. I believe, well, let me go to the next one. Bayard Elementary did apply for 3 mini grants with Freeport. They applied for 4. They received 3 of them. One of them for Perfect Attendance Award, one of them for Terrific Kid Pizza Luncheon, and the other one for hands-on learning games for students in kindergarten. So when we get that check, we will be bringing it to the board for acceptance of that grant. I believe there's a school board candidate forum on October 23rd. So do we need to go ahead and post a legal notice that we could have a possible quorum on that date? Okay. Is that the only date, or is there another date? I've heard rumors that there's 1, that there's 2, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, Zoom.
Okay.
And there's also one going on right now. The Daily Press has one going on starting at 6. Yeah, the other one is the Democratic Party, and it's tomorrow at 6 o'clock.
I thought the Daily Press had the one tomorrow. Daily Press is tomorrow.
I have no clue. That's why I'm asking. It's Zoom. Okay. So just the 23rd. We need to post a legal notice on that. Okay. All right. Next item is COVID positivity rates. So you did have in your packet the COVID positivity rates from September 24th to October 8th. I put on your table updated for the past 2 weeks. So we'll go through the updated positivity rates. In the last 2 weeks, from October 4th to October 18th, we've had 7 cases at Bayard Elementary that should be 3.1, sorry, not 31, 3.1% positivity rate. Central Elementary has had none. Hurley Elementary has had 2, so 1.3 positivity. San Lorenzo has not had any. Snell Middle School had 2, so they were at a 0.72 positivity. And then Cobre High School had 3, so they were at a 0.86 positivity rate. We did have 2 positives today at Hurley, and no exposure to any other students, and 1 positive case at Snell today too. So we will continue. These numbers are being updated on a weekly basis, and they are posted on our website weekly.
Are there any classes being held remotely?
We did, I believe right now the only one we have is the pre-K. We did at one point have Bayard Elementary 3rd grade and Bayard Elementary 4th grade. I know they were both back last week. And then we had the Bayard Elementary 4Y and Hurley Elementary 4Y that were remote last week. And I believe they're both still remote today. Oh, Hurley's back? Okay. Okay.
So the 4Y ones that you're mentioning are still,
No, the 4Y at Hurley is back today, and I honestly cannot remember the return date for the 4Y at Bayard. It could have been today. I'll let you know because I cannot remember.
okay. And thank you for the updates as you give them to us when they occur.
Yeah. And I did not hear back from the nurse from Snell, so I'm not sure if any students were considered close contacts for the Snell case. Again, the 2 cases at Hurley today, there were no close contacts for that one, for those 2. Fundraisers, we do have Snell Volleyball concession stand on October 2nd during the volleyball tournament for end-of-year T-shirts. We also had class of 23, a 50-50 raffle at all boys and girls basketball games for prom. There was a use of facilities form that came in a little bit late, and that was from Adrian Ortiz for use of the Snell football field for practice of the games. So since it came in after the agenda had already been done and went out, I did give him verbal permission. I will bring it to the board meeting on Monday for the board to approve that. Let's see. And then we have, go ahead, Mr. Pedro. Yes. The town of Santa Clara, the village of Santa Clara did donate, wow, a ton of PPE to our schools. I believe it was enough to give every teacher a bag. It had gloves, hand sanitizer, masks, and disinfectant spray in every bag. And they gave us so much that like I say, when the nurses came to look at it, it was enough to give every classroom teacher a bag. So we really, really appreciate that donation. It was a lot of stuff. We do want to recognize Mr. Diaz. If you could come up, please. Ms. Davis, you want to go ahead and do this?
The reason we called Mr. Diaz up here is because he was recognized as the AAA Athletic Director of the Year for 2020-2021 by the NMAA. And so Cobre, on behalf of Cobre Schools, we also wanted to acknowledge this great accomplishment for him, so we wanted to present him with a certificate of achievement from the Cobre Schools. Thank you, Mr. Diaz.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Congratulations.
We really appreciate that, Mr. Diaz. I know this is his third year as athletic director, so to receive an honor like this by the state as a newbie into the athletic field, you know, that's a great accomplishment. So thank you so much for all you do for our students.
Thank you. Am I still on?
Okay, next one. Yes, so we did talk a meeting a while back that we are going to be highlighting all the positive things that are going around in our district. And so today's highlight is homecoming highlights from Cobre High School. So Mr. Diaz.
Thank you. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you to the maintenance department and our custodians that made this happen and helped us throughout the entire week. Also, a big thank you to Western New Mexico University for allowing us to use their great race cars. We will be sending them a certificate of gratitude or something just to let them know how grateful we are that they allowed us to use their great race vehicles. We did put a short little film together for you. Mr. Burnett's the guy that does it for us. So he put in a little video, about 5-minute video, just kind of highlighting the events of that week. And then if there's any questions afterwards, feel free to answer any of them.
Now for the coronation of homecoming royalty. Your freshman princess, Zacenia Silva, the daughter of Maricela and Dionisio Silva. The freshman prince is Isaac Jimenez, son of Angelique and Ramon Jimenez. The sophomore princess is Jessica Palomares, daughter of Pamela and David. The sophomore prince is Nico Trujillo, the son of Sam and Jessica Trujillo. The junior princess is Madison Ortiz, the daughter of Paul and Trina Ortiz. The junior prince is Orlando Trujillo, son of Billy and Michelle Trujillo. Senior princess Emily Escada is the daughter of Robert Escada and Lisa Munoz. Senior prince is Daniel Martinez, the son of Dorina and Juan Martinez. Daniel wasn't able to be with us today, so his brother Isaac's going to represent him. Senior princess Destiny Avalos is the daughter of Cindy Campos and Pat Avalos. Senior prince Ian Rodriguez is the son of Maxine and Rodell Rodriguez. And now, for the moment of truth, what mystery we've been waiting on. It is with pride we announce our 2021 homecoming queen, following in her mother's footsteps, Miss Destiny Avalos. And the homecoming king, Ian Rodriguez. Congratulations, everybody.
Thank you. I forgot to thank local law enforcement, Mr. Gomez. Thank you so much. I know it's always last minute. I'm calling, hey, we need some help, and he's always there for us. So thank you so much for your help as well. Again, you know, we want to do more things throughout the year. I know last year was really difficult for the kids, so we want to continue to be able to do these things, and it's not without effort and without the community, you know, helping, and without a lot of people being involved. So thank everybody. I just want to thank everybody for all the help and being out there. And then we had our parent posse. Woohoo! I see one member that also helps us with that. So thank you very much. You guys have a good day.
I just want to thank all of the Cobre staff. I know it takes a lot of hours to put these events together. Everything was very well received. There was so many people at the parade lined up and down the streets for a long time. I think our parents really missed that last year. So again, thank you, Cobre staff. I did receive a couple more fundraising forms today. Sorry that I forgot that I had received today. We have class of 2023. No, they're going to be selling discount cards for prom and senior trip activities. We have the Sunshine Club of Cobre High School is selling beverages at the Cobre School Store for the purpose of raising funds for the Sunshine Club at Cobre High School. Snell Volleyball had concession stand for end-of-year t-shirts. And Mr. President, that concludes my superintendent report.
Okay, thank you, Joyce. We don't have our student here, so we don't have a student report. Public input. At this time, we'll entertain anything from the public. Anybody there, Victor? Any other? Go ahead.
So one of them, I just wanted to follow up. One thing we had talked about doing was a exit interview, or Ms. Davis was working on that, and we were going to take a look at a draft of that, I think, or at some point in the future. So I just didn't want to lose sight of that and make sure that it got onto a board agenda down the road. So, and then the other thing I wanted to just mention was that after about 3 years of work with WNMU, in my day job with the Gila National Forest, we finally got a fire science certificate program established at Western, and we're going to be implementing our first classes this spring, so spring semester of 2022. And you know, it's part of the dual enrollment program, so the kids can get credit, college credit for those courses that they take, and also once they complete those courses in the spring, they'll have all the coursework that they'll need to be able to get a red card, so they could, you know, if they're 18, they could sign up for an engine or a crew and work on a, you know, in wildland fire, so with the Forest Service. So I just wanted to share that and make sure that, you know, kids knew and that they have the opportunity to take advantage of that.
We appreciate Mr. Hogan. I know you've worked on that for a long time, and this is, you know, something that's really going to benefit our students. And with the class starting in the spring, I know that's April and May is when you all start recruiting, so this will actually be perfect timing for some of our kids to have some good jobs and maybe even some great careers out of this. So thank you.
And once they complete those courses, Gabe, do they come out with a, like an internship, or can they get into an internship program or something like that?
Well, I think at this point it'd just be a normal seasonal job. You know, several of our jobs are filled by students, are temporary jobs. So that, you know, but there is opportunity. You know, we do have an apprentice program where, you know, kids that have very little fire experience can come into the forest and get a permanent position, you know, that comes with benefits and retirement and everything. So there are some limited opportunities for that. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Gabe.
I'd like to follow up also on what your request was for the exit interviews, but the data that was presented last time kind of indicated that that was including 2 years as opposed to independently including 1 year, and I'd asked for kind of an accounting of that, including the names, just to see that that's an accurate reflection on the data. And another thing is, I've been asked to bring up concerns related to grounds, particularly in Hurley and in Santa Clara. In Hurley, the base not even remotely resemble the baseball field, but that I think there's some people that want to know what is our agenda on responding to that, and as well as the one in Santa Clara.
Okay, we do have a plan. Mr. Pedro, you want to talk about it, or do you want me to let them know what we're looking at doing? You have to come up here because then you won't get recorded. So let me go ahead and get started. So we've really struggled with that. We only have 2 people right now that are assigned to grounds, but because we're short-staffed with our custodians, we've actually moved those people into custodial positions. We've had a few applicants. Principals did interviews. They're looking at 1 recommendation for custodian out of the interviews that they did, but we are struggling to get reference checks. And because we feel that the custodian positions in the schools are really critical to help stop the spread of the COVID virus, we moved them into that. So we had been contracting with some cleaning companies, and so it wasn't really helping our weed situation. So we've kind of made some adjustments, and so what we're hoping to do now is we put those maintenance people in the custodial positions, and now Jackie's putting out for proposals for cleaning companies to come and do the weeds. So we're kind of doing a little bit opposite of what we were doing because we really needed those positions in the schools. So Mr. Peru, if you want to expand on that.
It's just a safety issue with having the custodians in there instead of being them on cutting weeds. It's safer for them to be in there, or it's safer for the students because we're actually there cleaning and getting those things taken care of and being sanitary.
And along those lines, the difficulty recruiting, have we looked at any alternative options in terms of maybe increasing the pay? They get paid, what, $21,000 a year?
Sure, exactly what a custodial pay is. Starts about 21,000.
So
21?
that translates into what, like $10 an hour? Maybe less?
$11.50, right, minimum?
11? How much?
It's $11.50. Minimum wage does increase to $11.50 in January, but we went ahead and upped those positions to $11.50 starting in August, in July, actually.
So I'm just wondering if there's going to be any consideration of raising that so that maybe we might get more applicants, and maybe we'd be able to keep some of the ones that we do have.
Something we can look at.
So regarding the properties that we just mentioned, the
So what we're doing is Jackie Riley is working on putting some proposals, getting proposals. She's got a scope of work that's going to be put out so that we can get some bids for people that put in bids to help do the weeds in all the different schools.
No,
And-
I meant the baseball fields at Santa Clara and Hurley.
Well, that's part of the grounds. That is part of our grounds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So you're looking at contracting that out?
that's what we're trying to do now.
Joyce, I just have one thing, and it's more of a comment. This past Thursday, it was actually an exciting day, or being there as part of the county. But I'd like to see, and I think it's really important when we have either some type of team, something going on from our district, it doesn't matter what grade level, that maybe the command staff, the administration, somebody could be there to support these guys. And I know you guys are really busy and short-staffed, and some doing 2, 3 different job titles, but this past Thursday, there was a commission meeting where the Cobre Wrestling and Coach Rainey Minus was present. They did a proclamation for Cobre, and they named every wrestler, their weights. It was outstanding. Coach Minus was able to go with the commissioners and take a picture, but not one person from the district was there. And I just don't think it looks good, and I think if anything, just to show the support from whoever goes up there, but I thought that was really important for that to happen.
Mr. Gomez, I'm not sure if other administrators knew about it, but I didn't find out about it until like 20 minutes till 9. I'm not sure if others knew before I did or not.
Okay, is there any other thing from the public? Okay. Do we have a recommendation to go into executive session?
Mr. President, I would like to recommend that we go into executive session. There's 2 items on the agenda. The first one is Cobre High School student discipline, and then discussion in reference to a special board meeting.
You heard the recommendation, do I hear a motion? Motion by Mr. Cordova, second? Second by Mr. Gomez. I'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Guadiana? Mr. Gomez? Yes. Myself, yes. Mr. Holguin? Mr. Cordova? We're in closed session. Entertain a motion to come back into open. Motion by Mr. Gomez, second. Second by Mr. Olguin. Any questions? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We went into executive session. Put my glasses on. At 6:20, it is now 7:18. Continue with the, we will return to open session and items for next agenda.
I do have two. One of them is the facilities request for the Snell football field. And then also Mr. Bouch, Mayor of Santa Clara, would like to come and address the board on a project they want to look at completing jointly with the district.
Okay? Anything else?
The exit interview, it's reviewing a draft of the exit interview.
Okay? Okay. I don't know.
Data related to the people that have left, didn't you get that?
We got it, but then we said that, oh no, it was really, we presented for 2 years as opposed to 1 year.
But didn't you email that, Ms. Davis, this week? Yeah. I've been emailing to your school email. Okay? Okay. It's the data that she presented at the last meeting.
Okay. Anything else? Motion to adjourn. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.